Welcome to a new season of Sober on the Drug Planet podcast, formerly Sober Heroes. The content's still the same, and yeah, just interviewing, I guess, or just having a casual chat with people that have got sober. And today, very honoured to have Siobhan with us. How are you doing, Siobhan?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, good. Glad to be here.
It's always a bit awkward doing that first intro bit because we've already chatted for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So we originally, and it's not for me to plug my books within the first minute, but I've already gone and done it anyway. So, but we met originally through Instagram, didn't we? So I think you messaged us after reading the books, and I just thought, you know what, you're 7 months sober now, is that right?
Yeah, 7 months sober. Yeah, it is been a hell of a journey, but yeah, definitely. Your book was the one that I picked up and I related to the most when I was like curious about getting sober. And yeah, as soon as I read it, I sort of like tagged you in it, tagged you in a story with like the book, and started my journey. And yeah, we've been sort of chatting and following each other ever since, haven't we? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's been good.
it's nice. I think, not again, this isn't about me talking about the book, but I originally, when I heard someone's story, that's what made me change my ways and realize things that, you know what, I do need to get sober, gave it a go, and then never turned my back on it since. But in terms of your sobriety, then just sort of give us a sort of a background of who you are and sort of what got you to that point of thinking, oh, I need to read a book or something about giving up alcohol, and then that decision to actually make the jump.
Yeah, so I haven't had like a big dramatic journey, never really hit that rock bottom like dramatically like you hear other people saying. I am a single mum. I have been for 15 years. I work hard. I work in recruitment. It's a fast-paced sales type environment. I go to the gym. I do all of like the normal things, and I was high functioning and drinking far too much. I was easily at sort of the peak of where I definitely had a bad relationship with alcohol. I would drink 2 bottles of red wine a night, and I'd wake up the next morning absolutely fine, no hangover, and go to work. And I would think there was nothing wrong with that whatsoever. We're brought up, especially in a sales environment, to, you know, go and celebrate all of your sales, all of your wins. You take your clients out, you wine and dine them. There's just so much alcohol fuel behaviour within a sales type, recruitment type environment, which just makes you think, oh, well, it's all right because everybody does it, so it's not a problem. And I kind of spiraled from there. So I was making good money. I went into sort of a management role. I was looking after a team of 15 people, 15 recruiters, and I would just wind down at night, and you know, I couldn't turn off. It was a stressful job. I couldn't switch my brain off, and I would just drink until I fell asleep on the sofa, and I just switched myself off. We all know that just does not work. You don't get a good night's sleep. It's not healthy. You know, I might not have had a hangover, but was I functioning to the best of my ability the next day?
So,
absolutely not.
just out of all
So,
those 15 people that you were managing and throughout your whole recruitment career,
yeah.
without trying to preload the answer, have you ever come across anyone sober in recruitment?
No, I honestly haven't. I have seen that there are on LinkedIn, there's sober groups on there, and I've joined a few. I've not been active on. It's literally been sort of last week. So I know that people exist within corporate environments that, you know, are sober and want that sober lifestyle. But no, never ever have I met a sober recruiter. It's just not
Until
something
now.
I've come across until now. Yeah, and it's me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, you can still go out, you can still take your clients out, you can still meet them, you can still do, you know, go out with your friends and socialize. It doesn't have to be centered around drink. And I found a level of confidence in myself where, you know, I don't need a glass in my hand, and, you know, I don't need to be filled with alcohol to have a good conversation, you know, because I was probably talking rubbish anyway. You know, I can say that I probably wasn't as successful as I thought I was, you know, in the height of that heavily drinking area. But for me, I think the major turnaround was, you know, I am a single mum, and my daughter would put herself to bed. I would fall asleep on the sofa because I've drank too much. What a disgusting thing to have in your household, is your parent just, you know, drank so much that they fell asleep. They haven't been in because they work in 50-hour days. You haven't really seen them. And when you do see them, they're getting drunk, and they're falling asleep on the sofa. And, you know, that become a real habit for, you know, I would probably say about a year and a half. That was life, and that was what I was exposing my child to, and just isn't acceptable. And yeah,
So
I just had
in
enough.
in terms of that drinking, then,
Yeah.
is there any single thing that you would put that down to, or was it just accumulation of life stresses?
So life stresses. I was, without making it all mopey, I was diagnosed with a neurological illness when I was pregnant with my daughter. I've had multiple surgeries. I then, about 6 years ago, found out that I'd broken my back. I'm still refusing surgery for that. So I was on a lot of pain medication. There's a lot of, with chronic illness, I think there's a lot of sort of depression that goes along with that. There is an element of, you know, you're probably never going to get better. And, you know, I was mixing painkillers with alcohol, and, you know, that, I think, with not being able to deal with that properly, on top of a high stressful job, on top of being a parent on your own. And the fact that it was acceptable, or seen as acceptable in my industry, to go home and drink yourself, you know, silly, to either celebrate or, you know, mourn a bad day where you didn't get that client win. So yeah, just took it a bit too far. And I think I found that I like being tipsy. I like the feeling of being drunk, and I think that's why I didn't stop for such a long time. I actually enjoyed the feeling of it. You know, I felt more confident. I felt like I could go and do things and be the person that I wanted to be when I'd had a few drinks. I thought I was more fun, and, you know, I definitely wasn't. But yeah, I didn't hate myself as a drunk person, and that's why I say, you know, I was highly functioning, because I was still holding down a job, I was still training, going to the gym, I was still doing everything that I needed to do. Bills were getting paid. But yeah, it's not okay, and I think that's a scary level to be in. I think if you hit rock bottom, you can see that you've destroyed things around you, but it's when you can't see that you're destroying things that it takes a little while to get out of that.
Yeah, and I guess then, on now that you've got 7 months of hindsight, I guess you
Yeah.
can sort of unravel in a lot more detail the real difference between, I guess, not necessarily drunk Siobhan, but
No.
drinking every night Siobhan versus now. So in terms of, I guess, just looking at a few things. So in terms of the neurological, is that something you still suffer with? Is that ongoing?
Yeah, so that's a lifelong illness. There's no cure. They don't know what causes it. There's no treatment for it because they don't know what causes it. I'm really lucky that I've had surgeries that I've had, which are really difficult to get in the UK. I started going blind. I lost my peripheral vision about 10 years ago. So I got the surgery that I needed, but a lot of people don't get offered that surgery. But yeah, I will live with it for the rest of my life. And I have a shunt fitted in my spine, which, you know, drains any excess fluid, and which causes pressure on the brain. So it's like having a brain tumor, but with no tumor. But yeah, that. It's a hard one to live with.
Have you found, I guess, not drinking makes it easier, or you've just been able to come to terms with it better?
I think you have to deal with your emotions, and that's tough, like actually dealing with things on a day to day. I think the not drinking has definitely made the medication work a lot better. You know, they were doing the absolute opposites. You know, and I wasn't helping myself. I wasn't at full health. I wasn't allowing my body to recover and to get the rest that it needed, and I was just fueling it with poison. And I think, you know, the sobriety is definitely it's definitely helped, although it's never gonna, you know, make a massive difference. It is, you know, I'm doing the right things for my body and my own well-being.
Yeah. And then obviously seen that you go to the gym a lot
Yeah,
now. So
yeah. Still with a
how's
broken back. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, so it's amazing that you say that. And then
Yeah,
obviously you're in the gym. How's things changed since I guess you've stopped drinking? Although you said you used to train when you were drinking
yeah.
anyway, but how's the difference and the progress you've seen?
So progress for me has been I would go and train, but I wasn't really, had a set, workout or trainer that I was working with. I didn't really have a plan. I was going, but I wasn't really there. I was thinking about, oh, what red wine am I going to get on the way home when I leave here for dinner, and my heart wasn't in it as much as it was. I was still lifting, I was still, acting like, yeah, PT's awesome and I love training, but yeah, did I just want to go home and just neck a couple of bottles of wine? I absolutely did. I didn't really want to be there. Whereas I've got this new passion for training again. I've got a new trainer that I'm working with. We're doing sort of powerlifting type movements. I'm doing new stuff that I've never done before, and I'm seeing the gains. I didn't get the weight loss that everybody says that you might get, which is it's devastating. I'm not going to lie, but you stop drinking, stop taking all those calories. I was expecting a few stone off, but
Yeah.
I've just replaced it for fruit pastels. That is my jam now. So fruit pastels is the one.
Yeah, I think that there's always a level of chaos that you're not going to get from fruit pastels that you would do with
Yeah,
2 bottles of wine.
exactly.
So it's a
I'll
lesser of
take
two
them.
evils.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take the non-weight loss for fruit pastels any day.
Yeah. And then in terms of your career, then I've always tend to
Yeah.
look at sort of parts of people's lives where they can just
Mm.
say like career or relationships, etc. But in terms of your career, how's that changed since you got sober?
So I was able to reflect. Part of this journey has been I have conversations about what is in our lives that just isn't serving us anymore, and is it okay for things to be part of your life for a certain time period. It doesn't have to be forever, whether that be a job, a friendship, a relationship, drinking, whatever it might be. If it's no longer, if it's no longer serving you, if the cons are more than the pros to whatever it is, it's got to go. Like, you just have to make that decision. So what I was able to do with my career was look at it. Did I enjoy managing people? Absolutely didn't. I'm not a manager. I like to go to the client meetings myself. I'll help and support people within my team, but do I want to step away from actually doing the recruiting to manage a team of recruiters? No. So
I
I
don't think I know
actually
anyone that actually enjoys managing people. I mean, it's like the
no.
worst thing. It's hard enough looking
Yeah,
after ourselves, let alone looking after a team of
yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, could you imagine me trying to look after a team of 15 people with 2 bottles of wine a night? I must have been the worst manager in the world. I must have been, absolutely horrific to work with. But a lot of that, I think, was because I was unhappy in my job. I'd picked a job that was well paid so that I could afford the lifestyle that I was living. And did it serve me? No, it didn't. So I've actually returned back to an old company that I've previously worked for. Um, I will say they are the best in the business, but I won't name any names. But yeah, I'm happy. I've come in as a senior recruiter, which is difficult from being a head of department, but I'm learning to sort of juggle now. I'm being managed rather than being the one that's got all the freedom in the world. But I've taken a step back. Work is important to me, but I've got relationships that I need to build on, relationships that need mending. Um, in my home life, in my personal life. So work is now not the be all and end all.
I think
Um,
just to interject, I think it's important
yeah,
to say that it's a form of growth, being able to take a step back from something as
yeah,
much, because I think a lot of us with similar generations and or the same generation even. I don't know how old I think I am there for a minute. I feel like I'm 50 sometimes.
all right,
Um,
Gandalf.
yeah. But I think it's important to take a step back. Like I was playing golf today with a guy who's ex-COO of Barclays, and he took a step back because the stress and the money wasn't worth it. And I
Yeah,
think you realise when you get sober about your own stress levels.
yeah. I am much more aware of what I want in my life. What is that pro? What is the con? And for me, you know, that big paycheck wasn't worth my stress levels being to a point where I wanted to drink every night. So that step back has been monumental. It's given me more freedom in my home life, work life balance. And yeah, I'm spending a lot more time at home, a lot more time focusing on things that serve me, make my well-being a lot more positive, a lot better on a week basis. I spend more time in the gym, but it's good time in the gym. It's good for my mental health. I spend more time with my friends, around people that I know that fill my cup rather than sort of drain it. And I spend more time with my daughter and my family. And it's at a time where I really need to be around them and mending that non-relationship that I've had. I've had relationships with them, but it's been not meaningful, and I can now build meaningful relationships because I'm not concentrating on what drink I've got in my hand. I'm concentrating on what people are actually saying to me and what, you know, the conversation is and how they're feeling, and I almost pick up the emotional cues from them and their body language a lot more than I could in that drunken haze state. So yeah, I think it's taking a step back. Like I said, it is definitely me moving forward in a hindsight.
It's a funny thing of relationships, isn't it? I think people naturally lose friendships, romantic relationships as well,
Yeah.
and then they just gravitate towards what you feel more comfortable with. And like you said, you get a better idea of your own energy levels. I think
Yeah.
everyone's had friends in the past, or still might have friends now, where you go and meet up with them. Generally, it would have been in the pub, and you come out of it and you're like, I feel like drained. Well, fair enough, the alcohol and the drugs didn't help, but also those people, those people. And
Yeah.
then I think you realise when you get sober that actually their interests weren't for a mutual thing that everyone was doing well. It was their own interests, and you either become part of what they want or you take your own direction. So did you find like your social group got smaller as a result?
Of drinking or getting sober, of drinking.
Yeah, well, I guess
Yeah,
getting sober.
a
Yeah.
bit of both. Yeah. So I was never really an out, you know, an out going out kind of person. I've always been quite homely based anyway. Obviously being a mum, I have to be at home the majority of the time anyway, although she's getting older now. But yeah, I guess the reasons why I would potentially have nights out, or the reasons that I would have people around my house, you know, let's have drinks, let's have parties, let's do this, that, and the other. Yeah, I guess I've got rid of certain people out of my life that, you know, influence behaviour that maybe I shouldn't have been doing. And that's come with family as well. I've had to be quite strict with myself. So I didn't go and do the Christmas with my family this year. Well, last year, I should say. It was my first Christmas sober, and I decided that it was just going to be me, my grandparents, and my daughter, because none of us drink. And I couldn't face quite being around everybody, you know, drinking and having that around me. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes in the relationships, the way that I do things, but I feel that I've got more meaningful relationships. I feel like anybody that I've lost along the way, well, that's tough luck for them. You know, it's their loss, not mine. And yeah, I feel good about who I've got in my life at the moment, and knowing that everybody brings something positive to my life rather than having that draining effect like you were talking about.
And it just building on from that, then it
Mm,
sounds like you've also found boundaries as well, because I think what a lot of
massively.
people, and I struggled with at the beginning, is we're conditioned almost not to say no to our own
Yeah,
family, especially around Christmas time. Like, I'm from an Italian family, and it's always booze is everywhere.
yeah,
But as I've got older, I find it more triggering. So even like 5 years sober, I find it more triggering now than I did at the early days. So
mm,
now I'm more mindful of saying, you know what, actually, I don't want to do this. But you saying with Christmas as well, it's
mhm,
such an important point, is to say no, because if I feel rocky, then sort of all that hard work doesn't get wasted, but it sort of is an unnecessary pain. that you don't need to go through if you don't need to go through it.
Yeah, 100%. It was a real difficult conversation to say, actually, I'm not coming. I'm not, for the first time ever, I'm not coming to be with my parents at Christmas. And that's nothing about there's nothing about them. And I think it's a difficult one when you're talking about sobriety and having family members that maybe don't understand the journey that you've been on, or maybe don't think that there's a problem with drinking. I could definitely point out a few people that I still have relationships with that I think, oh, are you on the cusp of, thinking that everything's okay, and is it really okay? I'm sure you do as well. You look at other people and think you're borderline now, whether I want to have a conversation about sobriety with you. But I'm very conscious not to push my own opinions on people. But yeah, it was a real conscious decision to not do Christmas. I've had my first night out. Which was difficult. I'm not going to lie. I came home and I sobbed. It was one of my closest friends' birthdays. It was their big 40th, so we went out. There was people drinking. It was in a club. Everybody, luckily, I had two really close friends with me that knew that I was sober, didn't drink, so they kind of protected me for a lot of it. But as soon as I walked in, there was somebody with a bottle of Grey Goose. Oh, let's pour you a drink. I was like, oh, it's really difficult still to say, oh, I don't drink, or yeah, well, I'm sober, or there is a stigma still around it. And I think that the awareness of people that do drink and it's almost, you have to drink it, it's acceptable to drink. Someone shoved a glass in my hand of alcohol and was like, oh, can you hold this while I just do, and I freaked and I panicked. So there's me with this glass of alcohol in my hand, and I was like, oh my god, luckily I had one of my closest friends stood next to me, and she literally just grabbed it straight off of me, ran into the bathroom and just sobbed. I was like, oh my god, I don't know what to do with myself. So it's tough, in that I guess that I'm more aware of how socially acceptable alcohol is, and I'm very strongly opinionated on the fact that I think that age limit for alcohol and selling alcohol needs to be increased, and there needs to be more of an awareness of the effects that it does to you. Yeah, if you were shoving a needle of heroin or something, I don't even know if you do take heroin in needles, I don't know, but if you were shoving that in somebody's hand, it wouldn't be acceptable. So why is it acceptable to just presume that everybody drinks and to shove a drink in somebody's hands? And I don't know, I come away feeling quite sad about it, but I did it, I braved it. Am I gonna go out anytime soon? Probably not. It's probably not worth the headache.
And I think it's good, isn't it? I think it's not good that you were sobbing and freaking
Yeah.
out, but it's good in the fact that you learn that actually you're not comfortable with it,
Yeah.
and you know that the trade-off is don't go out but feel better and have my life in check, which
Yeah, I'm
isn't
not
really a
saying that.
trade-off.
Yeah, I'm not saying that if, I had another close friend that was having an occasion, I wouldn't go out. I'm proud that I went, and I'm proud that I spent a couple of hours there. Um, Am I comfortable being out yet? No. Is that going to come with time? Maybe. But I'm still early. It's still only 7 months in. It's still an early stage of that journey for me. And I hope that in a couple of years, if that happens again and I'm in that situation again, I'll just brush it off rather than it being, a big drama for me. But yeah, it's all a learning curve. I don't think there's a right and wrong when it comes to sobriety. Everybody has their own journey and their own boundaries that they work with, and I think that's the important thing, that there is no right and wrong. You can take snippets of hints and tips from different people, or try different things, or different ways of getting sober or staying sober, but you've got to find it yourself, and it doesn't matter whether that takes months or years. You just got to find your own path, really.
If you, I guess, in your own sober journey, then, apart from the Sober on a Drunk Planet book, another
Yeah.
plug, what sort of tools have you used to sort of help you along the way?
So I use an app. I don't even know what it's called. Let me check it out while I'm here. But it's more to count the days that I'm sober. So it's called I Am Sober. Really, really I shouldn't have known that. That's pretty obvious. But there is a community on there, so it marks your milestones. It counts in days. It counts like how many days you've been sober. It does it in months and days, down to the hour and the minute. You set your, your affirmations of why you're doing this for yourself, so you can look at them and check in. And the ones that I wrote when, shall I read it to you? The one that I wrote when I first decided to become sober.
And
Okay,
if you
here we
want
go.
to,
I haven't read this for a long time. I am dependent on it for celebration, sadness, and stress. I only feel normal when I've had a drink, which isn't normal. That wasn't really like a very good thing to. There's no wise words in there, but literally, yeah, that was it. I only feel normal when I've had a drink, which I decided wasn't normal.
and that makes sort of complete sense, doesn't it? I think people use it as a
Yeah.
leveler, but actually that's not, because it's a drug. It heightens your senses and puts you to sleep after too many and makes you depressed.
Yeah, it literally does the opposite of anything that you're trying to probably do from having that drink. Why would you use a depressant to celebrate something? It just makes no sense whatsoever.
And that's the thing, until you actually do any sort of reading around it, which you wouldn't necessarily do if, say, you're in a recruitment environment, everyone's drinking, everyone's talking about booze for everything.
Yeah.
It's you're going to go your whole life pretty much, as most people do. It was when I was in the finance industry. They never question alcohol because it is so normalized. And it's eye-opening when you actually start reading into the facts. And I like what you said earlier. It's not, I'm very much the same as you. It's not my place to tell people whether they need to stop drinking or not. But what I prefer to do is to say to people, look, these are the facts. You've got a choice. You can either continue being depressed and all that, or you can try and give something else a go, where these are the benefits that all these other crazy people that don't drink alcohol talk about. And I think it's more powerful when you come up with your own decisions. And no one likes it when someone's telling you not to do something, because ultimately you're going to do the opposite of what they say anyway.
Yeah, I think for me, totally agree with everything that you're saying. I think for me, I feel like a stronger person now I'm not drinking, and I know that sounds really cheesy, but the fact that you have to deal with everything head on. Do I sometimes, when I'm stressed out at work, go in the toilet and cry? Yeah, I do, but I'm dealing with it, and I'm dealing with that emotion, and I'm
And crying
learning how to
is an
handle
outlet.
things.
Yeah, there's nothing
Look,
wrong with crying.
I can't scream at anybody, in a work environment. So it comes out in tears. I'm just that person. When I'm really angry or really frustrated, I cry uncontrollably, and it's so embarrassing. And I'm like, I'm not upset. As I'm, tears are just rolling down my face. But and it's not pretty. It's not a pretty journey. But I have not had to deal with my emotions, whether that be, from being sick, from needing surgery on my spine, from being a single mum, from dating life is hard in your 30s. There's work is hard, like life is hard in general, and having to deal with the emotions of the day to day is hard. But just drink was not the one for me, to try and deal with it. I think there's better ways to deal with it. I do the whole cheesy journaling thing only because it gets everything out before I go to bed that I'm worried about or I'm stressed about.
There's
Gives me a good
nothing
night's sleep.
cheesy. There's nothing cheesy about journaling. So journaling was huge. Like, I think having that, it's almost like a free counselling session at the end of the night or the beginning of the morning, especially when you add in affirmations and goal setting as well. It sort of gives you purpose each day. And I think that's the thing. When I was drinking, I don't know whether you're the same, but my brain was like a washing machine. I was always worried about what people thought about me and whether I was doing well enough or things like that. And alcohol was almost used as a way to reduce all those thoughts, because I never spoke to anyone about how I felt. So actually, when I found journaling was very cathartic. Pretty much the same reason why I like writing now. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with with journaling.
I think that, yeah, it just gets everything out of my head that I would potentially be worrying about or keeping myself up at night, because you don't drink it away. So
Yeah.
it has to go somewhere, and you have to find your own way to rationale things, find your own way to prioritize your life, prioritize your worries. And yeah, journaling was really helpful for me.
I think you start to see a pattern as well. Most worries are sort of future projections of something that might never happen. And then when you
Yeah.
sort of take away that power, you're like, oh, why am I
Yeah.
worrying about that? I've literally got no control over anything.
And
Um,
I used to worry a lot about what people, like you said, what people thought of me, either in that corporate environment or as a mum or as a parent. And now I think to myself, I don't know that that person's actually having that thought about me. That's my head messing with me, thinking that that person thinks that about me. You know, until they say it to my face, now I don't worry about it. Like, I don't care what I might be thinking that you're thinking about me. Or like, what sort of
it's
ridiculousness is that?
it's crazy. You know what? I think one of the most powerful books I ever read, and it's quite a simple book, but it was a subtle art of not giving a fuck, and it was just basically saying people have got too much shit in their own lives to even
To
think
care.
about you, but you're
Yeah,
wasting all that time and energy worrying about what they're thinking about you.
yeah,
It's crazy. So everyone to some degree is in that crazy loop, but no one really
100%.
cares.
No. But you get yourself so stressed out about it, and that was one of my main stressors. You know, am I doing a good job as a boss? Am I doing a good job as a parent? That was one of my main reasons for drinking. It's some imaginary thought that my own brain thought about, that
Yeah.
wasn't even true, wasn't even a fact. So yeah, journaling gets it out.
So journaling, reading, have you listened to any podcasts or anything like that before?
Yeah, so I listened to a recruiter podcast. You know, in regards to sobriety, I've gone away from reading and listening about things about it, because I got to a stage where I was getting so obsessed with it that it was making me want to drink. I was reading about drinking or not drinking all day long, that it made me think, oh, I really fancy one. And, you know, it was having the opposite effect on me. So I've come away a little bit about, you know, it was definitely useful for me to listen to podcasts, to, you know, read up on stuff, to look at the facts, to read different books, you know, Social Girl Society, things, you know, there's lots of different things out there. But I just got to a point where it wasn't, I just didn't want to hear it for a little bit. I just wanted to focus on my journey.
I think that's
Um,
a fair point as well, because I've found something similar when I went to AA and Cocaine
okay.
Anonymous, that I'm there with a load of people talking about all the things that I'm trying to move away from.
Yeah,
So if there's other elements of life, it shouldn't all, in my opinion, shouldn't all be sobriety. I
yeah,
mean, like you said, you listen to a recruiter one, and it's good because you want to
yeah.
get better at your job, and that gives you purpose and other things that sort of give you reasons not to turn back to drink as well.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, it's there when I need it. And I know that there's, you know, books and podcasts and people, friends that I can access if I need it, if I feel like things are going the wrong way, if I'm having a bit of a wobble. You know, use my app every day. That's probably the only thing that I use every day. And you can check in, and there's a community on there. You know, if you get to a milestone, and you can talk to people that are in the same day as you, sobriety wise.
Oh
So
yeah,
you almost, you know, you're going through the same rubbish together, you're going through the same good stuff together, and it's
yeah.
different people's opinions. But yeah, I just come away from it for a little bit, because I don't want to always think about why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to focus on the stuff that I've missed out on. So I'm just at that stage at the moment. It's not saying that I won't go back to reading stuff, or, you know, needing to tap into things, but they're there when I need them, which is always what you want.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an important point. There's so many other things that you can listen to that make
Yeah,
your life more wholesome. You then have more pros not to drink than because you're doing better at business and relationships
yeah,
and personal development and everything else.
yeah,
Right, so
100%.
we've come to the end of the time, mainly
Okay.
because, like I said before we started, I'm too tight to pay for an hour on Zoom.
Well, I could have
But
gone on for ages, I think. I think we need a second part, or I could just chat on forever.
it's been brilliant though. Like you're inspirational. You've got your own set of challenges as well that you've come through. 7 months sober is amazing. Being a
Thank
single
you.
mum as well, doing all the weightlifting, especially with
Yeah.
your spine as it is as
Yeah.
well. And yeah, no,
Just not
really,
stopping.
yeah, really well done to you.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll keep in touch. And thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, and thank you so much for obviously staying in contact throughout my journey, and obviously the book was what helped in the first place. So thank you, and I'll keep following and keep listening. I can't wait to hear everybody else's podcast.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, and thanks for the plug as well.
No worries.
Nice one. Right, brilliant. That's the end of this Sober on a Drunk Planet podcast with Siobhan. And yeah, we'll speak to you next time.